There you go. Hi, Mills. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. How about you?
Good. I am so glad that we have a chance to connect here. Get to know who you are through your week as our artist in residence, virtual residence. We got a good peek. Um, so this is our chance to learn more about who you are and what inspires you.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you so much for meeting with me.
Of course. So let's start with a little bit of who you are.
Yeah, so I grew up in Florence, South Carolina. It's like sort of a small town, sort of like a big small town in South Carolina. And a lot of my art today is still really interested in the South and sort of like my own story there, my family there, but also just that culture in general.
Mhm.
Um, But yeah, I went to college also in South Carolina, Wofford College. It's a small liberal arts school. And I did a bunch of art there, but they didn't have like an art major at the time. They do now, which is really awesome. But so I took every art class I could, but I knew after college I really wanted to do like an MFA. I really didn't know much about, I felt like I didn't know much about the art world or how to actually be a professional artist. So I wanted to go straight into grad school. So that's what brought me to DC. I went to American University in 2015.
Mhm.
Um, and I did my MFA there for 2 years. And I've been in the DC area since then. Um,
Did you know before college that you wanted to be an artist, or is that
I
something?
did, yeah, yeah. I should back up even more. Yeah, I was always an artist, I guess, like even as a child. I grew up, my dad's an architect, and he and my mom got this pretty big but really old house, and they sort of wanted to like fix it up. It was definitely a fixer upper.
Mhm.
And we had this really big basement that whatever they did, they couldn't get it to stop flooding every time it rained. So
Oh,
finally they're just like, whatever, we like won't do anything with the basement. So it was like a huge space, and it became sort of like a place that I could do whatever I wanted to with. At a young age, because it just, yeah, it would flood. So that my parents would let me like draw on the walls, paint on the walls, and that was really,
it's a
I think,
dream.
inspiring. Yeah, it was great. And I mean, that was in like elementary school, and then in high school I actually sort of made it into like a studio. I had, all these canvases all over. I would have friends over to come paint, and I spent a lot of time down there. Yeah.
Wow. Well, that is a dream. Like being able to draw on the walls and just have your way with it. I'm sure that impacts your um like what your creativity stems from there.
Totally, I think so. Yeah, I'm really grateful to my parents for allowing me that creative freedom as a kid.
Does the architect in your dad play into any of your interiors and
Yeah, I think it must. I mean, people ask me that, and I think it's kind of interesting. My dad's an architect and my mom's an English teacher, so I kind of have both. Like the interior space, I'm really interested in just, yeah, architectural and interior space, and then also narrative and story.
yeah.
So I think it must be an equal influence.
Right. I see a blending.
Yeah.
And so, all right. So now, fast forward. You're in DC. You have just started your MFA program in American. Did you know through your courses or through your childhood, you know, painting, collages? This is the medium that I want to work with, or
Um, that's a good question. I think I did mostly painting and before the MFA in high school and college and at home. I think just because I don't know, when I think of an artist, I think of painting first. I think a lot of people feel that. And I did some mixed media explorations, but it wasn't until grad school that I really broke free from a little bit from the idea that I need to be a painter, which now I'm back to painting, but I think it's with a different lens. I think
Mhm.
grad school really helped me. Like, yeah, I just got really into collage. There's so many questions during the critiques, like where are you sourcing your color palette? Where are you sourcing your patterns? Like what and so I realized like I'm not being specific enough with all these things. And I felt at the time like using photographs of an actual place or an actual person or an actual pattern could help me get that specificity that I felt that I was lacking. So that really got me into collage and
Mm-hmm.
into using the photograph. And even now I'm painting more, but I think I organize a composition like a collage. And
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah, yeah. So you talked a little bit in your Instagram takeover about your process,
Mhm.
and so reference photos and sketches being one of the first steps. But what comes even before that? Like, how do you? What is it about a sketch or a reference photo that makes you think that there's something there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I guess to answer that, I probably work in like series in that way, like over a like a year or 2 year period of time. I have some kind of interest. So during grad school, I was really interested in like photos of specific places and specific family members. And so like a big part of the process was rooting through old pictures that we have at home, or like my house I grew up in, or my grandparents' house, or another family member's house. And especially like times, I guess, that I wasn't a part of, I think were really interesting, like before I was born or when I was a young child, places I had only heard stories about, kind of got this like, really magical feeling to it just
Yeah,
as a kid. So now like that place still has that feeling. And so I'm drawn to that um, in that way. And I try to recreate it. Recently, I've been doing something a little bit different. So I'm on to more creating interiors. I don't reference the photo so specifically. I sort of choose a bunch of different images I can reference to make sort of a new place.
sure.
Um, yeah.
That's interesting as well, how like memory and home, talk about those being key aspects or themes
Mhm.
throughout your work. But playing with memories of others,
Mhm.
memories you don't have as you create that new work and memory. Do you incorporate that intentionally, or does it play in um, to your understanding of memory and space?
Yeah, I think so. I'm really interested in, well, even in the sort of previous way of working I was describing, like
Mhm.
places before I could really remember that place, they still have a spot in your memory. So I'm interested in memories that are more like fabricated. They're not real. You just heard that story and you can really imagine it. And I think maybe that's what also draws me to um, working from. So some of the new works are also based on like a novel, a scene in a novel. I did this one behind me is from Toni Morrison's Beloved, and then I'll show you real quick. This one across is um, from a William Faulkner novel, Absalom, Absalom, and both of them are actually at the beginning of the novel. It's just like sort of setting the scene, but it just like draws you in.
Mhm.
I love that moment when I'm reading a book, and I think it's like that gives me a new memory of this place, but this other person described it. It'll never be exactly what they thought it was,
Mhm.
but now to me, it's something. So yeah, I'm
That's
interested in that
beautiful.
idea. Thank you.
That's really beautiful.
Thank you.
How I'm also curious how your connection to home and family and time, how has that been impacted this year in particular?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I mean, a hard question that I'm definitely grappling with. Um, I've always been really interested in the Southern Gothic genre, which is like William Faulkner, Flannery O'Connor, and others. And this, I mean, they mostly look at white Southerners and the darkness in our culture, in our history of injustice in the South. And this year has definitely put in perspective to me and to so many people that that has not gone away. And
Mhm.
been here, it's still here, and it's something we all need to um, confront more. Um, so I think that's definitely part of the work. I'm trying to look more at whiteness specifically and white supremacy in the South, in my family, and me. And um, I think looking back to authors, not contemporary, but sort of classic American authors who have dealt with that already gives me some sort of um, way forward. They were talking about this in the 1950s and the 1900s today still. So, yeah, I think looking at the past in that sort of novel way in a
Yeah,
novel helps me see
right.
what needs
Yeah.
to be done still.
Toni Morrison, the one behind you, for example.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, well, thank you for sharing that. I imagine that it's a journey that continues, as it does in all of artist work right now. That art plays a really important role in social justice. It always has in history, and so that's beautiful, the ways that you're looking for your role and what you play in this moment too.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I pivot a little bit and have you talk us through your process then? Would love just to dive into
Sure.
what are you working on right now, and what are some of the processes that we could learn?
Yeah, totally. So I can just talk specifically about this one behind me, and this is sort of how I've been working on paintings recently. I start with the idea, but I'm trying to loosen up. Like I said, I was at one point just doing like straight from a photograph, but now I'm trying to combine a bunch of different reference images. So a way I've kind of tried to loosen up like the beginning stages of the composition is just to first paint everything with I use these fluid acrylic colors, and I really like the neon. They're like Liquitex fluid acrylics, I think they are. But so like this bright red is the ground layer. So I sort of like drew out this figure, drew out the stairs and the neon. Some of the pink and the green is still showing through. And then after that, I usually try to use, I really like this flash paint as well. It's a matte vinyl paint. So this over here in this part is the flash paint. So I try to add more of the walls or the floor with that. And then I've been using these, I think they're Aerowick. I don't know how to pronounce the brand. They're these oil paint pens. That's when I really start to go back in and do some of the patterns. So like I'm just started on this wallpaper with a paint pen and just barely on the carpet on the rug over here.
Yeah.
I sometimes I feel like I have more control like drawing than painting. So I really like to draw out the patterns with those. And then sometimes I'll go back and add some paint on top or paint the final details. And I have also been doing some more of the fluid acrylic washes on top.
And so you add those details even as you go along. You start to add some of the smaller, more intricate details to your pieces.
Right. Yeah. So right now I'm kind of like in the middle of wrestling with this rug. It'll look totally different when I finish it, but you can kind of like yesterday I did the yellow, but I didn't like it, so now I'm changing it. So I'm like trying to figure it out. And then once I kind of get more of an idea, I like the paint pens too, because if you do one color, you really don't like it, you can totally cover on top. And like I said, I have more control with the bigger like composition areas of the painting with those pens. And yeah, paint more on top. And then sometimes also we'll do like a collage detail. I'll also do a collage somewhere on top as well.
And so when you incorporate a collage or photographs, how does that process work?
So I have this, I don't know if you can see it, I'll show you. like this huge bin. There's some paint on it, but this is just full of different collage pieces. I have saved up over the past couple years. I still like root through magazines or print things, but I have like a ton there that I could still use. So a lot of times I just sort through that again, and I'll find, let's see, I'll show you this painting. For example, in the rug here, I used just lots of different, these are all collage pieces.
Oh, wow.
Sort of like from the bin. So that's kind of the detail on top. And then another one up here, I printed this one out specifically. I knew I wanted this image on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I print them specifically, and sometimes I'll sort of go through what I already have available for pattern.
Yeah. And then how do you layer it in to the work?
So I guess maybe I'm trying to think which one would be a good example to use. With the one that I showed you before, this one was sort of already, like planned. It was going to be there as a picture of my grandparents. I just wanted to show the bottom piece. This is a room from the house that I grew up in. So, like I had that idea. I knew that would be there. I just kind of printed it out and put it on the wall. After I got done with the paint, I can add it in. And then this one is also.
And how do you add it in? Yes.
So I use this, let's see, heavy gel mat.
Okay.
So I glue it down with this, just like kind of paint it on the surface and on the back of the collage piece. And that really like holds it down well to the surface. And I also usually do either a matte medium varnish from Liquitex or a satin varnish on top. To make sure like my printer ink doesn't fade too quick. Yeah.
Is it oftentimes printed out from your printer?
Yeah, that one was. I've also been really into using origami papers lately, so I've ordered like some origami papers. Let's see, just other like random pattern papers. I was getting like free samples from different wallpaper companies for a while, so I still have a lot of those laying around. I was really into Life magazine for a while, the sort of old like American magazine. They have really matte pages, which I really like. They're not too glossy. This painting collage, these are all butterfly wings that I have been saving for a long time and finally found a purpose for.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you. That's sort of like her background.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. I'll do with this one. I did a couple different coats of the satin varnish, and then the like heavy gel medium to attach it to the canvas.
Gotcha. I imagine that was a delicate process.
Totally. I messed some of them up, but I guess you can't tell too much, hopefully.
Oh, that's great. Wonderful. Okay, so then when you want to create a pattern, you showed briefly on Photoshop how you create your own patterns. Sometimes do you do that often?
Yeah, so I think I showed an example, on the Chala Instagram. With that example, I was specifically thinking about a painting I don't have here anymore, but I was doing like a big wallpaper in the background. So I just wanted the same image over and over, and I would sort of alternate colors, like different little squares of the wallpaper. So I search sometimes online. I mean, sometimes I take something from a specific, like if I have a photograph of an actual wallpaper, like from a family photo, I can section out a little piece of it, but sometimes I'll just sort of like start with a Google search and be like Victorian brocade, whatever, and find something I like. I change it a lot on Photoshop, change the color, pick one little piece of it, and then just multiply it a bunch of different times, print it, cut it, varnish it, glue it.
There's a lot involved.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I definitely developed this in grad school, but it works well at being an art teacher too. Like to have, I can just like take things in my purse. Like I'm just going to cut these out if I have like 10 minutes at school and I can always be working on a little tiny piece of the process.
Um, I I used to do the middle school version of collages, pulling apart a little bit of everything. And I'm sure that there are still scraps in my parents' home somewhere.
Yeah, I really love collage, and I teach it to my students a
Mhm.
lot because I think it is sort of almost like the first step of art. You have to identify what interests you visually. And so with collage, that's easier than just like thinking like now I have to brainstorm a painting. It's like I can root through images that are already there and choose what I like.
What are some of the lessons that you hope your students learn when working with collage?
Um, I think I usually I work with young kids like I do. I've been teaching preschool the past few years. Right now I'm working with kids who are about like 4, 5, and 6.
Mhm.
So for the really young ones, I like them to know that they can just use any material, anything can be art, and they pick that up really quickly. I think for older kids, it's important. They already have an idea of like what art is, what a tree looks like, what a sun looks like, and they kind of do the same things in some of their drawings. So at that age, 6, 7, 8, or older, you kind of have to break that mold. Like, you know, you can also use pictures that look like this, or, so it depends. It kind of depends on the student, but I think either just get, I guess generally getting them excited about a new material that's not what they think of when they think of an art class, maybe.
How many pieces throughout a month do you put together?
It really depends. I guess maybe like maybe 3 paintings or 4 on a really good month. But then at one point I wanted to do like really big paintings, bigger than I had done before. So then I was doing like one every month and a half. Um, Sometimes I'll get into like a slump where I don't really feel inspired, and then it'll be less. It's hard to say.
Right. What advice would you give when artists get into those slumps? What works for you?
Uh, I think the best advice, which I could be better at like taking myself, would just be like have faith that it will pass. Usually when I'm in the creative slump, I'm like just beating myself up, feeling guilty that I'm not working. I wish I was being more productive. But um, I mean, that happened to me like at the beginning of the pandemic around April and May and June. I was just like home and I didn't want to paint. I'm like, I've never had so much free time. My job was just like totally paused for a month. Um, but I did not feel creative. So I think, instead I started reading and walking and doing some other things. And I, I wish I had been able to be more, I knew I would be inspired again one day, but it would be nice in the moment to have a little more faith that it will rejuvenate.
Yeah, yeah. And it's important to give yourself that permission and space to not always be creating,
Totally.
or not in the to let it materialize in new ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
Did that time period, were you already working on your novel series?
No, I've started that since. So that really did come from that. Like I couldn't work in the studio, so I was like, I want to do something. So I just started reading, and I actually, I think at first I just really wanted to read and not paint, and I wish reading was actually a creative pursuit. And then I was like, oh, it could be. I just have to make that part of my practice. So yeah.
um, I won't tell your mom that you said reading wasn't a creative
Oh my
pursuit.
gosh. Well, at one point I was like, maybe I should be a writer. I like reading so much. I wish I wasn't a painter. I want to be a writer, but it is a creative pursuit. But
No, I'm just joking. Well, I could you walk us through your studio a little bit?
sure. Yeah. So it's pretty small. I'm living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Tacoma Park.
Mhm.
And so this is just like the door to the hallway. So then you come in, this is like the first wall that you see. Usually whatever I'm working on, I'll have over here, and I have like a yoga mat that I either stand on, but also a lot of times I work on the floor. I'll put the painting on the floor and like kind of lean over it. These are just some works I have around. And then this is a big window, so there's good light in here in the day.
Very nice.
There are a bunch of materials. So over here I have like all my, let's see, yeah, all my paint, flash paint.
So many colors.
Yeah. One day this summer I like try to organize everything by color, but it always gets messy. And then this is kind of like random, like kid art lesson stuff. And yeah, here's the other wall again. Oh yeah, over here we have, this is kind of messy, just like printer, different papers. And yeah, that's it.
That's a great studio.
Thank you. It's really nice. I was for 2 years just working like in the living room, on the floor of my bedroom. So just to have a designated space and I can make a mess and shut the door and come back whenever. It's great.
Yeah. Though I imagine even when you didn't have a studio, you found ways to kind of create create segmentation of this is now my creative zone.
Totally. Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Sure. Any tricks or hacks that came from that?
I think I started working like a lot smaller and I bought these 2 big bookshelves from Target and just like meticulously organized all of my different materials. It was in my bedroom. It had like 6 by 8 probably floor space. Sometimes I'd actually work in my bed. It was like a super tiny little room in a shared house, but yeah, my work got a lot more detailed and tiny and intricate, and now I have the space. I could buy the bigger canvases.
Yeah.
Just kind of let it happen.
It's funny how the space in which we work can have such an impact on what we produce and the come out of it. So I'm excited to follow along and see what the big open spaces lead to in your paintings.
Thank you so much. Yeah, hopefully one day I'll have like a warehouse studio.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see it for sure. Well, Mills, thank you so much for the time. It's been great to get a little peek into your creative workings here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been great to talk to you as well.
Thanks. Well, take care. For everyone that hasn't yet looked, Mills Brown, she has a wonderful Instagram takeover on Shaw in DC. Please take a look, and you can get even more resources at your website as well. So
that's right.
She's incredible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Have a good one. Bye.